the Roots of the Science podcast with your girl, Anne with an E. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Root of the Science podcast with your girl, Anne with an E. Now, have you been listening to podcasts during this quarantine period wherever you are in the world, and you've had that little inkling telling you that maybe you should start a podcast, but you don't know how to? Well, using Buzzsprout as your podcast host, you will join over 100,000 podcasters who use this platform already to get their message across. So a simple way you can do it is that there's a link in the show notes, and it also lets Buzzsprout know that I sent you, and it gives you a $20 Amazon gift card if you sign up for a paid plan. And the best part, it helps you support the show. So please go ahead and click on the link in the show notes. But as for today, my guest is Adama Saccoh, who is originally from Sierra Leone, but currently living and studying in the United Kingdom. In this episode, we learned that she left Sierra Leone and came to study in the UK to pursue medicine. Unfortunately, she was not able to pursue her dream in medicine. Adama tells us that through those rejections, because there were a couple, she learned to detach her self-worth on her grades, and in the process, she realized that the one thing that she craved mostly was knowledge, and there are other avenues in STEM to satisfy that knowledge need other than pursuing a medical degree. Currently, Adama is a MSc student in Medical Ultrasound, specifically studying echocardiography, which is using ultrasound to image and diagnose various heart conditions. She tells us more about this research and its importance. Also, Adama started a blog called TheCatalystInMe that first started off as a hobby, like many people do, to try and fix a problem that she faced in her undergrad, not knowing what she could do in her degree. Now, this blog has grown to a place with a mixture of really amazing profiles of people within the life and health sciences field, and it's also a source of representation. Lastly, we also discussed a survey that she conducted using the blog on people's perceptions of science, which she created an Instagram TV series, which you can find it on her Instagram, and basically just understand people's perceptions to science. Are they willing to take the vaccines, etc., which is really important, especially in this pandemic time. Now, let's get into it and hear about all of this and so much more. Let's go. Hi, Adama. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
I am so excited to chat with you and for everybody else out there to get to know you.
This will be so fun. I'm so excited.
All right. Well, please tell us about yourself. Where you from? Where you originally from, rather? Where you currently based, and what you're currently doing?
So my name is Adama. I'm 23, if I'm correct, yeah. I'm originally from Sierra Leone, but I'm based in the UK right now. I grew up in Sierra Leone for the most part, so from like 7 to 18. So like most of my like life-defining years were there. And now I'm doing university in the UK. So yeah, that's me.
Oh, brilliant. Quick question. You said you grew up 7 until 16. So where were you born?
I was born in the UK.
Oh, and then you went back.
Yeah. So I feel like for me, that's one of the things I'm very grateful to my parents for. Like, it's just, I'm so happy they actually just let me go back, or it was something very important to them.
Okay, that's quite interesting, but I'm sure we'll get more into that as this interview proceeds. So now, usually before we get into the crux of the interview, I just wanted to ask you, like, as much as what is your aspiration away from the sciences? I know, like,
in most cases, people always like aspire to get my master's or my PhD. And we've got this close connotation of who we are as identified by academic career. But I just want to step away from all of that, but away from the sciences. Like, what is one of your dreams? Like, for me, rather, let me just give you an example. It's, I have this huge dream aspiration that I'm going to own, like, my house. I'm going to have this kitchen that is just going to be amazing, and it's going to be open plan. Like, it's so vivid.
I love it.
Like, it's so vivid. So I just wanted to ask you, I think it's quite interesting just to see, like, what is your non-academic dream?
My non-academic dream, I'm branding myself as a rich aunt. So I want to be that aunt that gives your kids like a £50 note because they want to go buy sweets. That's my non-science aspiration, just to be happy and comfortable, and just I'm trying to think of like a celebrity that embodies my rich aunt vibes, but can't think of one right now. But rich aunt is who I want to be outside science, because all my friends, I'm like, once you have kids, I'm going to be the aunt that does their hair, plays around with their stuff, and is just there like giving them stuff. That's me, the rich aunt.
I love it. I can already see the vibe with the glasses and the fur and the champagne, like, everything.
Where were you? I was just on my yacht on my island for the weekend. Do you want to come? But yeah.
Oh man, this is fantastic. You know, I definitely see it happening, you know. So before you get there, you go back to the science. Let's just reel that all the way back in. I just wanted to ask you, what are some of the influences that actually got you into the field of STEM? I know you briefly touched on the fact that your growing up years, rather your most fundamental years, you were in Sierra Leone, but were there specific people? Like, what is the root of your science?
The root of my science, I think, I wish it was like really interesting, like really snappy, but I was just like good at science. So I just gravitated towards it. It was like they were the subjects I did well in, and I was like, okay, this is cool. And then I think I heavily regret saying this when I was little, but I think around 10, I told my dad or my mom I want to be a doctor. And since then, I feel like they were so happy their little girl wants to be a doctor, so they latched onto that. And since I said it and I was doing well in the sciences, they're like, yeah, you're going to be a doctor, come on. And so I had that idea for a very, very long time. So I loved science, and then the end goal was I'm going to pursue medicine, and that was it for me. And then life was like, no, you're not.
What happened? Where did life say, girl?
So it's kind of an interesting story, because the main reason why I left Sierra Leone, because I always planned to come to the UK to do university, but I left because of the Ebola outbreak, because that was in my first year of like sixth form. So how old is that? Like 17-ish. So that's why I left. I'm fortunate enough to like be able to continue school in the UK. So I came here, and in my head, I was going to do medicine, and I knew it, but I did not really properly understand the medicine application process. So I came to the UK, and then I had to do my A-levels again. So I was ready I only had 1 year left of college, came to the UK, they're like, no, you have to redo this because stuff aren't transferable. And I was just like, what? So I was that kid that did well in school and was like, yeah, I'm going to do well. I'm going to go do medicine. And now you're telling me I have to do redo a year of school. Are you okay?
Yeah.
So I was like devastated. And then through those 2 years, but weirdly enough, those 2 years I grew so much as a person. I volunteered a lot. I kind of started figuring out that I like science. I started working in hospitals, just pushing myself to do stuff, went to summer schools, did like an iGEM summer school, ended up going to Boston. So there were really cool things that happened in those 2 years. But then I applied for medicine now, and the rejections just came flooding in. So my first choice, nope. Second choice, nope. Third, nope. Fourth, nope. And then my final choice was to do a biochem degree. And then I was looking at it, I'm like, I don't even understand what biochem is. And I was like, I don't want to go there, no. But then fortunately, a few universities like offered me alternate courses. And that's how I found my course. I had no idea what it was. I was like, okay, you guys say I can do it, I'll do it. And I quickly did a little Google and just accepted the university that I liked the most. And and then that led to me enjoying the sciences and realizing medicine might not be for me, because I just liked I realized I crave knowledge and not I just craved knowledge. So understanding that I craved knowledge more than anything else was like, okay, this is interesting. Maybe you don't have to be a doctor, because I just thought doctors know everything. I want to be that person. But now I'm like, there's so many different ways you can actually learn the stuff you want to learn.
Definitely. And I think you and so many probably fell into that trap, because that's all we were all exposed to. That when you think of somebody smart, you think doctor, but you didn't even know, like you said, like you didn't even know what biochemistry actually is. So of course, it's really hard to imagine anything else other than what's being presented right in front of you. But you mentioned something that was very interesting, and I think for most people who aspire to be a doctor, it rings true. The whole rejections and rejection not once but 4 times, and also how, like you said, that when you came to the UK, you were the smart student who, you do really well in this, and they're like, no, actually repeat, start from scratch. So you touched on it briefly, but I just wanted you to unpack it further. How then do you think all of these rather detours and maybe side steps where your journey wasn't all that linear, how did this, benefit your journey your journey into the sciences and where you currently are now?
I think the most important thing, especially redoing the year, was that year really allowed me to detach myself from grades and detach myself from getting like complete fulfillment from how smart you are or how well you do. Because growing up in Sierra Leone, that was a big thing. Like doing well in any African household is like the pinnacle of success. Like, my daughter's smart, my son's smart. So I had to really detach myself away from just getting good grades. And even when I came to the UK, it's not like I was the smartest. I met people that were like way smarter than me and didn't struggle as much. And because their style of learning was completely different from mine, I had to readjust to a new style of learning. So it got me to really reflect on like how I learned, how I perceived myself and how I perceived education. Because at first I was like, oh, I'm just good at school, that's it. But then I got to kind of enjoy the education process once I detached myself from the grade I got and what I got. So all the ups and downs just taught me to like enjoy the process and detach yourself a little bit away from the end result, because the end result from my journey always ends up changing. So I always have this grand scheme in my head and I always do something completely different. So just enjoying the journey more than the end result.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And also, I think sometimes the way that I look at these little mishaps, like you said, some things happen for a reason, and usually to teach us about a lot of life lessons. And I think it's hard to accept that in that moment, like when you're going through this. It's hard to be like, oh, yes, this is really teaching me something, because you're frustrated, you're angry. But I think when you look back and you reflect, you're like, oh, okay, I did A, B, C, D, and I am this person now. Like you said, that you became a better version of yourself, which is really, really good. Which is really, really good. So currently you are a master's student. And you're a master's student in medical ultrasound, specifically studying echocardiography, which is basically using ultrasound to image and diagnose various heart conditions. First of all, I have never heard of this. It sounds so interesting. Like, What? Please tell us some more about this. Like, this is really new to me. I'm so excited to hear about it.
So the journey into it was, I was at the end of like my course, I realized I really loved people. I'm a people person, and the lab kind of scared me a little. I was like, I don't want to be in the lab for months alone. I'm like, I really crave people. Like, I like talking to people. So I'm like, what's something that I can use to like bridge my love of people but never leave the science world? And I'm like, I don't want to be a doctor, I know that, and I don't want to be a nurse or do any of those type of things, but I kind of want to be involved in some form of healthcare. And I saw this, and I shadowed somebody in a hospital for a day, and they were doing like different like cardiac tests, and then I saw this one, and I kid you not, I saw it and I was like, this just looks really sick. I'm like, you're looking at somebody's heart. I want to do that. Just like, you're here looking at somebody's heart and you can tell what's wrong with them by just the picture. I'm going to do that. And that's how I kind of went with it. And then again, to like speak on rejection, there's like this big program in the UK called like a clinical scientist training program. I applied for that, got rejected from that. And I was like, well, wow. And then I saw this course and I was like, okay, this is very similar to what I was intending to do. And I just applied saying, if I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't. I'll just enjoy the rest of my summer. And then in August, I got accepted and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So the course is like really cool because there's patient contact, and the heart is my favorite organ. Like, if anyone follows me anywhere, I talk about it a bit too much maybe. But the heart is my favorite organ, and the idea of just connecting with people is you're quite close to them. So think of the same way an ultrasound is done for like pregnant women. It's the same way, just on your chest instead. And just learning the heart in detail, because I never got to I only learned the molecular side of it. So I never got to learn like structural detail of the heart. It wasn't like a priority for my course. So it's been really cool, and just understanding the bigger picture, because I have that background knowledge in knowing how like cardiac cells are excited and all of that. And now I get to actually see the heart. Like, to me, it's each time like, oh my gosh, this is too cool.
Yeah.
And it's used, and it's like a very cheap way of diagnosing diseases. It's not the gold standard for all methods of heart diseases, but it's a very quick and convenient way. And the other reason why I picked it is because, again, I have a very close relationship with Sierra Leone, because it will forever be home for me. So I had to think, what is something I can also do if and when I decide to move back? What's something that can be useful? What's something that can be translated? Because I think lab sciences is quite difficult, and I wasn't really interested in like virology and stuff like that. I didn't really learn that in my undergrad. So I was like, what is something that I can do there is like a higher possibility of me being employed like back at home, and just having that connection or that option to always go back when I'm ready.
Oh, wow, that's very interesting. So, like you said, this is more practical than theoretical aspect of it. So so a typical day, you are, I'm assuming this is an assumption, you are at clinic and you are doing ultrasounds on people's hearts. Is it people with specific conditions? Do you shadow? I know this is a lot, but do you shadow like a cardiologist? Like, how does it work?
So it's like you go into there's a specific department called the echo department, and so a patient will come in, and before the whole COVID situation, I got to go in, and you would do your scans, because you're trained to do the scans in the particular manner you need to do it in. So I'll get to do I'll go through the protocol of the scan as far as I can go, and then somebody will come in and check it, and then you get to look at the reports, and like based off the report, then you do the diagnosis. And they're like two cardiologists in the department, so it's quite like an integrated team. So you see the like lead consultants, and you get to be part of the discussion of things that go on. So it's quite cool.
Yeah, I think you were like pretty close in being a doctor without the doctor. Like it's the doctor title, and maybe because you missed all of the, the stress of when going through a doctor is. I think you are underlyingly living your dream. I think so, or your parents' dream actually. So, how far into your master's are you?
So I'm more, I guess, quite nearing the end of it. I just have like a bit more clinical placement that has been placed on hold because of everything that's going on. So it's just like writing up of my dissertation now. So quite at the end of it, which is scary but interesting.
So do you aspire to come back and finish into the PhD, or you kind of like what you're doing and hope to pursue a permanent job?
I think I'm on pause right now because, again, like when you have time to sit and reflect, you fully think like, what do you enjoy doing? And again, it's so crazy. I said I wanted to do this course because of how much I thought the lab was isolating. And then now I'm just like, I kind of miss the lab. So I'm just like, I now want like a mesh of both. So I'm like, let me just pause for a little bit. I do have some time to think about it. So I'm like, let me just pause and just really reflect on where I want this to go, because I have to make some grown-up decisions that I'm not ready for.
No, like you said, it's good to take some time to reflect, and you have time. So figure out exactly what you want to do. So apart from the masters, you have a blog. You started a life science career blog called TheCatalystInMe. So tell us, how this blog was birthed and what you aim to do with this blog.
So the blog came about in my second year of uni, and I was looking for stuff to do. Again, that's when I had decided I don't want to do medicine anymore, because I had the opportunity to apply in my first year and I was like, nope, I'm not going to do it. I had the grades to apply and I was like, nope, I don't want to do it. So in the summer, I started just researching careers and like, oh, what should I do? What should I do? And all the career advice was so tailored to like finance and psychometric testing. And I'm like, I know for healthcare jobs, I don't have to do any of this. So you're really wasting my time. And I was like, I just kept on looking. I couldn't find the information that I wanted. So I went to this Women in STEM event at my uni, and I was looking at these amazing women, and I was like, what if I just ask them questions and see if they're willing to like answer a bunch of questions for me? And then I was like, oh, I want to start this blog. Would you be willing to answer questions? And then quite a few of them said yes. And I sent them emails. They all replied. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is actually a thing. And then
Isn't it beautiful when that happens?
I know, because you're just like, oh my gosh, you're really replying me. Oh my gosh. And then I asked my friends, because we are all doing the same similar courses. I have a friend that did pharmacy. I had a friend that did medicine. So I'm like, let me start with the people I know. Like, I don't know, like some, I don't know, big pharma person, but I have friends in science. So I'm like, let me start with them. And I started with friends, started asking friends and the few people that replied my emails and offered to do it. And it started just growing from there slowly. And I started with the idea of doing interviews, writing stuff about science, so just science articles, and just stuff about uni and finding your career, just things that I was learning, because I'm like, if I'm going to learn all this, let me just write it down. So that's how it started. And now it's grown into something more than I thought it would be.
Yeah, congratulations on that.
Thank you. I was like, wow, like the people that respond and the people that have gotten back to me, I'm so grateful to each and every person, because everyone is so kind and so giving. And thank you to answering questions as well.
Thank you for featuring me.
So kind and so giving and so honest. And that's why I also saw lacked like honest opinions, because for me, I'm not the roses and daisies type of journey person. That doesn't get to me. I'm like, something must have gone wrong or else I'm just dumb. That's how I kind of relate to it. And I'm like, there's not enough of that. And I always see people that do extremely well, and I consider myself quite an average student. Like, I'm not that person that gets, I don't know, 90% continuously. I'm the person that can pass continuously, like pass and pass well. That's it. So I get a good grade and I understand, but I'm not the one that everyone's like, oh my gosh, look at you. So I was like, there are a lot of us, and it's a struggle finding what you want. So that's how it came about. And it's, growing into just, I want to see where it goes. It's quite cool. And every time I want to like stop, or I don't think I should continue, somebody messages out of the blue or somebody replies, and I'm like, I have to continue now because this one person has like read something. And it's something I've realized this year that I'm like really passionate about, because first I was like, oh, it's a hobby, and I kind of wanted to stop doing it this year because I was like, oh, things are slowing down. And weird enough, now I'm like, I can't stop doing this. This is something that's very close to my heart now, and it's very much a part of me, and it's no longer just a hobby or just this thing I do. It's a thing I do.
Definitely. And, you know, like you said, from second year, that's amazing to where you are now and everything that you do, you know, so only bigger and better things. And speaking about this year, you actually held an interesting survey on your Twitter page with the under the blog identity, where you an interesting survey exploring public perceptions of science, which was quite interesting. And I just want you to tell us some more about that, and if you can, I know you've got and what you're going to do with all of this. Rather, what are you going to do with all of this information that you got from all these different types of people?
So I set out, for people that might not be aware, I set out the just putting out a survey out there to my immediate circle. And because I was like, if you want to cause change or if you want to start a conversation, it has to be with people you know. And as much as I wouldn't say I have like the biggest following in the world, I'm just like, it is still important, because I think people shy away from talking about what they want to talk about because they don't think enough people will listen. So I'm like, I'm going to put this out there with the aim of like 50 people. I'm like, if 50 people answer and 50 people are engaged and 50 people, like, which is enough to fill up a room, are engaged enough to actually make an informed decision, I've done my job and I'll feel content. So I put it out and I'm like, oh, it's getting past 50. I'm like, oh, okay. And I just put it out and I'm asking my friends, and I didn't push it like everywhere or DM people to share it, because I'm like, I want people that genuinely care or genuinely will end up reading it to actually vote, because from that, at least a good conversation would be had. I don't just want it out there for the numbers. I wanted the people that really wanted to know a bit more and saw it, and I was like, oh yeah, this is something kind of interesting to respond. And crazily, 149 people responded, and I'm like, this is amazing. What? I'm happy. That's over the moon. I was like, this is crazy. I don't even know 150 people. But and then the responses, again, like, human beings are so special. Like, the responses were so honest and so open. And I jokingly played with the idea of like, okay, I'm going to do it as a video series, like as a joke. Yeah. And then I'm like, okay, enough people have responded. And I realized more people respond to video and audio than they do to written work. So I'm like, because I really want a conversation and people to really listen, I should actually put myself out there, which scares me. But I was like, let me actually put myself out there. So I recorded all the videos into a video series based off of the rough questions I asked. So I generally wanted to explore if people have changed their ideas about science or scientists due to what's been happening. Will people take the vaccine? Then I asked, and then again, what came up a lot was the wrongdoings of science. So I explored a little into the wrongdoings of science and stuff that I wasn't taught, and just went into that, because if people are going to make an informed decision about taking a vaccine, I don't want to act as if science is not guilty of doing the wrong thing. And I wanted it to be very honest and very open. As much as I advocate for taking vaccines, I don't want people to think they're wrong for kind of being hesitant or not trusting the system. So the video just go across how people felt. Will you take the vaccine? Do you trust the scientist? Do you understand how the vaccines are developed? And at the end of the series, I just want like people to, I guess, engage or have the conversation or take something from it. And then I'll put it in like a cute little web page so people can access it whenever they want throughout the year. And the videos will be there, and hopefully blog posts explaining some wrongdoings of science, or just explaining things that people should be aware of, especially also when taking in information, because I didn't expect to start a full-on thread of COVID information. I just randomly was like, oh, I'm going to read. Let me just like keep my reading together. And then as I'm doing the reading and taking in all this information, it's just so much for me as a science student. I'm like, for the average person, nobody cares. And this is way too much. So those are all things I wanted to address, and how people just took, like, I just thought it was all confusing. So I just wanted to know how people took it all in and how everyone feels. And yeah, so hopefully there'll be a webpage at the end of it, and the videos will be coming out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's very important. Like you said, I think there's a lot of information out there, some of it which is misinformation. And I think sometimes, like you said, as scientists, people can be guilty in the way that we put all of this information out there to inform people, but sometimes you don't realize that not everybody is able to understand it in the manner that you as a scientist are trying to communicate it. So doing, I think, the work as a science communicator like yourself is so important. And also just figuring out, like, okay, fine, you want to do this type of, I think the survey is also very interesting. Like, how do people really think about vaccines? Why do they not trust scientists? You know, getting that information is so important, instead of saying, okay, this is what we're going to do, but do you think people are actually going to take this vaccine? You know, there's a lot of things. Like like recently, I think if you saw, they were saying that Russia has finished their first trial of
and when when you hear news like that, you're thinking, oh my gosh, there's about to be a vaccine ready. But then I clicked on the article and I'm like, they haven't even gone into phase 1.
Yeah.
I was like, what is
this? Because people now are excited. And interestingly, just on that whole perception, somebody who's not in science, a friend of mine, was like, but do we really trust Russia? You know, because there's so much negativity around Russia. Let's say hypothetically Russia did get this right and, you know, it isn't the final trials. But because of this perception that people might have and how the media has painted Russia as this like enemy of the world, like now people are going to be like, this vaccine's coming from where? Do we really trust Putin? Do we really trust? So I think these are the type of conversations which are so important for people, for I think also people, hopefully the people in these big organizations look at some of the work that the people on the ground are doing, and they're like, maybe let's actually do a survey and actually find out what people think of this. Like, it's funny.
After we make this, are people going to take it?
Yeah. It's so obvious, but I think sometimes it gets missed. It's like, how did you miss that? And I think it's that whole thing that the non-communication with the science communicators, like people like yourself who are doing this sort of work and are seeing the troubles in all of these spheres. So speaking of your videos, where can people watch them, etc.?
So they can watch them on all my social platforms. So Instagram is TheCatalystInMe. So just that. Twitter's slightly different, which is, let me just get it up, CatalystInMe _. And the website is www.TheCatalystInMe.com. So quite simple.
Lovely. Lovely. So as we wrap up this conversation, what advice would you give to an African in STEM who wants to be a doctor and then life kind of happens to them, about getting into STEM as a whole, but also just specifically about your very unique field?
I would say about getting into STEM and just pursuing science. Do what you love, even if it's difficult. Don't let how difficult an idea or how crazy the idea is stop you from really going for your goals. Because I've realized in my journey, often I stop myself because I'm scared. And it's not because I know I can't do it. I'm just scared of the idea of the work. I know it's something I want to do, but because of my fear, I convince myself it's not for me. So trying to understand those feelings, like, do I really not want to do this, or am I just scared that I can actually do this? Because sometimes you are actually just scared of how great you can be. So just do it, and don't overthink it. Just do what you want. Do it. Just do it. And
just do it.
Literally just do it. Believe in yourself and reach out to people, especially in the social media age. Reach out to people and don't be scared to share your passions, and don't be scared to really go for what you want. It can sometimes like take a lot of effort, and sometimes people won't notice, because as a podcast host yourself, it's so hard sometimes getting engagement from people. You always look into the outside world for validation. Anything you do, whether that's academia, whether that's your hobby, make sure you're doing it for you at the end of the day, because the moment you start focusing on other people's reactions, you lose the love for what you started with. So just do it for you. Do it for you and do it well for you.
That's very, very true. I think we are all so caught up on the number of likes, the number of shares, that if that isn't happening, you tend to second guess, like, am I really doing the right thing? And sometimes I think, like you said, you just have to keep on doing it and just persist. Eventually it's going to hit. Like you started this in your second year. I mean, look at you now.
Yeah, like it's been,
look at you now.
It's been so long. So just continue doing it. And I go back on my website and I look at it myself and I'm like, oh, this is nice. So do it for you and like make yourself feel good. And if other people appreciate it, well done. And if they don't, just make sure if you need to stop doing it, then stop. If it's too exhausting, like just
No, that's some wonderful piece of advice. Thank you so much for chatting with me. I had so much fun talking to you.
Thank you for having me.
This is really, really fun. And just to everybody else, thank you once again for tuning in to another episode of the Root of the Science podcast with your girl, and with an E. Until next time, goodbye.